My name is Hannah Reynolds, and by 28 years old, I built a $12 million clean tech empire that could have changed the world overnight. I trusted the one man who raised me after my parents died, my mentor, my father figure, the brilliant Dr. Marcus Webb. Then at what should have been our biggest celebration, he looked me in the eye and said, "We're removing you as CEO. You're too young, too emotional for this responsibility." The board voted me out of my own company in under 5 minutes. $12 million? Gone. I simply replied, "Is that so?" That night, I activated a plan that would destroy them all. They never saw what was coming next. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're ready to hear how I turned the greatest betrayal of my life into a revolution that changed an entire industry. I was 7 years old when they first called me a genius. My IQ tested at 187, putting me in the top 0.001% of the population. While other kids played with toys, I was building computers from spare parts. By age 10, I had skipped 3 grades and was already taking advanced calculus. By 14, I was accepted to MIT with a full scholarship. That same year, my life changed forever in the worst possible way. The call came on a Tuesday night in October. My parents, Dr. Sarah and Dr. Michael Reynolds, were driving home from a medical conference when a drunk driver ran a red light. They died instantly. In one moment, I went from being a prodigy with unlimited potential to an orphan with nowhere to go. That's when Dr. Marcus Webb stepped in. He was my father's colleague and research partner, a renowned physicist who specialized in energy storage systems. Marcus had been like an uncle to me, encouraging my scientific interests and often saying I reminded him of himself at that age. When my parents died, he didn't hesitate to take me in. "Your family now, Hannah," he told me as he helped me pack my belongings. "I'm going to take care of you and make sure you reach your incredible potential." Marcus lived in Cambridge, close to MIT, in a beautiful Victorian house filled with scientific journals and cutting-edge technology. For the first time since my parents' death, I felt safe. He understood my mind in ways others didn't. While other adults found my intelligence intimidating or unnatural for a child, Marcus celebrated it. He homeschooled me through high school, designing a curriculum that challenged me intellectually while allowing me to heal emotionally. We spent hours in his lab, where he taught me advanced physics and chemistry. He introduced me to his colleagues at conferences, always proudly introducing me as the brilliant Hannah Reynolds. Watch for this name in the future. By 16, I was already taking graduate-level courses at MIT. By 19, I had completed dual PhDs in electrical engineering and business administration, the youngest person in the university's history to achieve such a feat. Marcus was there at my graduation, beaming with pride. "Your parents would be so proud," he said, tears in his eyes. "You've become everything they dreamed you would be and more." During my studies, I became obsessed with solving one of the world's most pressing problems: energy storage. Renewable energy sources like solar and wind were becoming cheaper and more efficient, but they had a critical flaw: they were intermittent. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. The key to a clean energy future wasn't just generating renewable power, it was storing it efficiently for when we needed it most. Traditional lithium-ion batteries were expensive, had limited capacity, and degraded quickly. I spent countless nights in the lab, experimenting with different materials and configurations. Marcus provided resources and encouragement, often working alongside me until the early hours of the morning. "You're going to solve this, Hannah," he would say during my moments of frustration. "You have a gift that comes along once in a generation. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The breakthrough came during my final year at MIT. I discovered a way to create graphene-enhanced battery cells that could store energy for weeks without significant degradation. More importantly, they could charge and discharge at unprecedented rates while maintaining stability. The applications were limitless, from powering entire cities during peak demand to revolutionizing electric vehicles. I published my initial findings in Nature Energy, and the response was immediate. Tech companies, energy corporations, and venture capitalists all reached out, eager to license or invest in my technology. But Marcus had a different idea. "Don't license this to someone else," he advised. This discovery could change the world. You should start your own company and maintain control of your innovation. At 22, with Marcus as my co-founder and chairman, I launched VoltaCore. I gave him 25% equity in the company, partly for his initial investment and business connections, but mostly out of gratitude for everything he had done for me. He had raised me, supported my education, and believed in me when the world saw only a strange, too young girl with impossible ideas. This is our chance to change everything, Marcus said as we signed the incorporation papers. Clean energy, environmental salvation, technological revolution, all starting with your brilliant mind. VoltaCore's early days were exhilarating. Working out of a rented lab space in Cambridge, I refined my battery technology while Marcus handled business development. His reputation in the scientific community opened doors that would have remained closed to a 22-year-old, regardless of her credentials. Our first prototype batteries outperformed anything on the market. They stored 500% more energy than traditional lithium-ion cells, charged 10 times faster, and showed minimal degradation even after thousands of charge cycles. When we demonstrated the technology to potential clients, the reactions were universal amazement. "This changes everything," said the CTO of a major solar installation company. "With storage like this, renewable energy becomes truly viable for base load power." Within 6 months, we had our first major contract, a $2 million deal with a California utility company to provide grid-scale energy storage. The success attracted attention from larger players. Tesla's energy division wanted to license our technology. Google approached us about powering their data centers. Even traditional energy companies began inquiring, though their interest seemed more focused on controlling the technology than implementing it. Marcus handled most of the business negotiations, arguing that his experience and age gave us credibility with conservative corporate buyers. "They need to see a gray-haired scientist," he explained. "It makes them comfortable. You're the genius behind the technology, but I'm the face they can trust." I accepted this arrangement, grateful for his guidance and protection from what he called the sharks in the corporate world. Marcus had saved me from a life in foster care, nurtured my talents, and was now helping me build a company around my innovations. I trusted him completely. By our second year, VoltaCore had grown to 30 employees and secured contracts worth $15 million. Our technology was being used in renewable energy installations across North America. I was featured on magazine covers as the young genius revolutionizing clean energy. Speaking invitations poured in from conferences and universities. But I noticed something troubling during media interviews. While journalists wanted to focus on me as the founder and inventor, Marcus often redirected conversations toward himself and his role in guiding the company. "Hannah is extraordinarily talented," he would say, "but raw genius needs experienced leadership to reach its potential. That's where I come in, helping her channel her innovations into practical business solutions." These comments stung, but I rationalized them. Marcus was protecting me from criticism about my age and inexperience. He was taking some heat so I could focus on what I did best, the technology itself. The board of directors we assembled reflected Marcus's philosophy of experienced leadership. As chairman, he recruited accomplished businesspeople and scientists: Dr. Elizabeth Chambers, former CTO of a Fortune 500 energy company; Robert Martinez, a veteran venture capitalist; Patricia Wong, who had led successful IPOs for 3 tech companies; and Dr. James Morrison, a respected physicist with connections throughout the energy industry. During board meetings, I presented technical developments while Marcus translated them into business implications. "What Hannah's breakthrough means," he would explain, "is that we can now offer storage solutions at 60% lower cost than competitors while delivering 3 times the performance." The board members nodded approvingly at Marcus's explanations while treating me with polite but distant respect. They clearly saw him as the real leader and me as the valuable but immature technical asset. This dynamic became more pronounced as VoltaCore's success accelerated. In our 3rd year, we signed a landmark $50 million contract with the state of California to provide grid-scale storage for their renewable energy initiative. The deal would make us a major player in the clean energy transition and position VoltaCore for explosive growth. The success brought new challenges. Competitors began aggressively trying to poach our employees and reverse engineer our technology. Traditional energy companies that had initially ignored us now viewed VoltaCore as a threat to their fossil fuel businesses. There were rumors of corporate espionage attempts and efforts to undermine our relationships with key suppliers. Marcus assured me he was handling these threats. "Don't worry about the business warfare," he said. "You focus on the next generation of technology. I'll protect what we've built." I threw myself into research and development, working on revolutionary improvements to our battery systems. In my private lab, accessible only to me, I developed breakthrough innovations that went far beyond our current technology. These advances, involving quantum-enhanced materials and new storage architectures, could make our existing batteries seem primitive by comparison. I kept these developments secret, planning to reveal them once our patent protections were stronger and our market position more secure. Only I knew the full potential of what VoltaCore could become. But I began noticing troubling signs. Key technical documents were being accessed by people who shouldn't have had clearance. Design specifications I hadn't authorized were being shared with potential licensing partners. Financial decisions were being made without my input or knowledge. When I questioned Marcus about these issues, he was reassuring but evasive. "Growing companies always have coordination challenges," he explained. "We're building systems to improve communication. Trust me to handle the business side while you handle the innovation." I wanted to trust him, needed to trust him. He was the only family I had left, the man who had raised me and believed in my potential when no one else would. But the nagging feeling that something was wrong grew stronger each day. My concerns crystallized during a conversation I accidentally overheard between Marcus and board member Dr. Morrison. I was returning to the office late one evening to retrieve some files when I heard voices from the conference room. "She's becoming more difficult to manage," Marcus was saying. "The success has gone to her head. She questions every business decision and wants approval authority over deals she doesn't understand." "The technology is hers," Dr. Morrison replied. "We need her cooperation." "For now," Marcus agreed. "But we're developing our own understanding of the core innovations. And frankly, her emotional instability is becoming a liability. Did you see how she reacted to the ExxonMobil licensing inquiry? She called them environmental criminals and refused to even consider their offer." "Maybe it's time to consider a leadership transition," Dr. Morrison suggested. "Keep her involved in R&D, but bring in an experienced CEO." "I've been thinking the same thing," Marcus replied. "She's brilliant, but brilliance isn't enough at this level. She needs guidance, and if she won't accept it willingly." I crept away from the office that night with a horrible realization forming in my mind. The man who had raised me, who I trusted completely, was planning to remove me from control of my own company. Over the following weeks, I watched more carefully and began to piece together the full scope of what was happening. Marcus had been systematically positioning himself as the true leader of VoltaCore while marginalizing my role. Board meetings were scheduled during times I couldn't attend due to research commitments. Key business decisions were made in pre-meetings before I arrived. My technical presentations were increasingly edited or interpreted by Marcus before being shared with investors or clients. More disturbing was the evidence of technology theft I began uncovering. Competing companies were developing battery systems suspiciously similar to our early prototypes. Key employees were being recruited by firms with connections to our board members. Patent applications were being filed by third parties that described concepts I had shared only in internal documents. The pattern became clear: VoltaCore was being systematically looted while I was being gradually pushed aside. The people I trusted most were preparing to steal not just my company, but the technology that could revolutionize clean energy worldwide. I began preparing for war. Working in secret, I documented everything: recorded conversations, email trails, financial irregularities, patent theft evidence. I hired my own attorney, a fierce corporate litigator named Amanda Chen, who specialized in founder disputes and intellectual property theft. "This is one of the most brazen cases of corporate coup I've ever seen," Amanda told me after reviewing the evidence. "They're not just trying to remove you, they're trying to steal your entire life's work. More importantly, I had been preparing technical defenses they knew nothing about. The battery technology Voltacore was currently using represented only about 60% of my true innovations. The remaining 40%, the breakthrough advances I had developed in my private lab, were protected by patents filed solely in my name and secured by encryption keys only I possessed. Without these missing components, Voltacore's batteries would begin failing within months as the temporary stabilization compounds I had included broke down. The board thought they were stealing a complete technology platform. In reality, they were taking a deliberately crippled system designed to fail without my continued involvement. I also began quietly reaching out to our most talented employees, particularly those who had joined Voltacore because they believed in the mission of clean energy transformation. Many shared my concerns about the company's direction and Marcus's increasing control. "Something's wrong," confided Dr. Sarah Kim, our lead battery engineer. "They're asking me to reverse engineer components of your original designs, claiming it's for documentation purposes. But the questions they're asking suggest they don't understand the fundamental principles." I realized they were trying to steal my technology but lacked the deep understanding necessary to maintain or improve it. Without my knowledge, Voltacore's competitive advantage would slowly erode, leaving them with expensive but ultimately inferior products. The confrontation I had been dreading finally came in December, just days after we announced the successful implementation of our California contract. Voltacore had achieved everything we had dreamed of: recognition as a leader in clean energy storage, multi-million-dollar contracts, and technology that was genuinely changing how power grids operated. Marcus suggested we celebrate with a dinner at Mistral, Boston's most exclusive restaurant. "This is a milestone worthy of proper recognition," he said. "I've invited the board members and key investors. It's time to acknowledge what we've all accomplished together." I should have recognized the setup. When I arrived at Mistral's private dining room, I found not a celebration but a formal meeting. The full board of directors was present, along with our corporate attorney and two people I didn't recognize: a man in an expensive suit and a woman with a briefcase full of documents. "Hannah, please sit down," Marcus said, his tone formal rather than familial. "We have some important company business to discuss." The elegant dining room felt suddenly oppressive. Crystal chandeliers cast sharp shadows across faces I had trusted. The view of Boston's harbor, usually inspiring, seemed ominous in the dim light. "What's going on?" I asked, though I already knew. This was the ambush I had been preparing for. Dr. Chambers, the former Fortune 500 CTO, spoke first. "Hannah, we've been reviewing Voltacore's trajectory and have some concerns about leadership and strategic direction." "The company has been incredibly successful," I replied carefully. "We've exceeded every target and milestone." "Success built on whose vision?" Marcus interjected. "Hannah, your technical contributions have been valuable, but a company needs experienced leadership to reach its full potential." The corporate attorney, someone I had thought worked for the company but clearly served the board's interests, opened his briefcase. "Miss Reynolds, the board of directors has voted to restructure Voltacore's management team." "What does that mean, exactly?" I asked, though my racing heart already knew. Marcus leaned forward, his expression paternalistic but cold. "Hannah, we're removing you as CEO and from all operational roles. You're too young, too emotional for this level of responsibility. The board has voted 4-1 to bring in experienced leadership." The words hit like physical blows. 4-1. Marcus had turned every board member against me. However, Dr. Martinez, the venture capitalist, added with false kindness, "We value your technical expertise. We're prepared to offer you the position of Chief Research Officer, with a very generous salary and continued access to R&D resources." I looked around the table at faces that had once seemed supportive, even friendly. Now I saw them clearly: predators who had been circling for months, waiting for this moment. "And if I refuse?" I asked. The corporate attorney answered. "Your employment agreement includes provisions for removal in cases of incompatible leadership styles. You would receive a severance package, of course, but your access to company resources and facilities would be terminated immediately." Marcus tried to appear sympathetic. "Hannah, this hurts me more than you know. You're like a daughter to me. But I have a responsibility to protect what we've built together. You're not ready for this level of corporate leadership. Built together? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. I built this technology. I founded this company. I secured our breakthrough contracts. With my guidance, Marcus replied firmly. With my connections and my credibility in the industry. Raw talent isn't enough, Hannah. It needs to be channeled, directed, protected. Dr. Morrison, the physicist who had been discussing my emotional instability weeks earlier, spoke up. This decision wasn't made lightly. We've observed concerning patterns in your leadership style. Erratic decision-making, rejection of sound business advice, inability to work collaboratively with experienced professionals. The accusations were carefully crafted lies, designed to justify what they had already decided to do. I realized this wasn't a discussion or negotiation. It was a sentencing hearing for crimes I hadn't committed. I need to think about this, I said, standing from the table. I'm afraid that's not possible, the attorney replied. The board resolution takes effect immediately. Security will escort you to collect personal items from your office, but all company property, including research materials and computer access, must remain here. The man in the expensive suit revealed himself as head of corporate security. The woman with the briefcase was from HR, ready to process my termination paperwork. They had planned everything. This wasn't a spontaneous decision based on company performance, it was a carefully orchestrated coup designed to steal my life's work while discarding me. I looked directly at Marcus, the man who had raised me, who I had trusted with everything. You know this technology better than anyone. You know I'm the only one who truly understands how it works. He met my gaze without flinching. I know enough. And what I don't know, we'll figure out. That's what experienced teams do, Hannah. They adapt, they learn, they solve problems. Is that so? I said quietly, channeling every lesson he had taught me about staying calm under pressure. Something in my tone must have unnerved him, because his confident expression wavered slightly. Hannah, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Accept the research position. Stay involved with the technology you love. Let us handle the business complications. I reached into my purse and pulled out my company keycard, placing it on the table with deliberate precision. I understand perfectly now. As I walked toward the door, Marcus called after me. Hannah, you'll always be family to me. This doesn't change that. I paused without turning around. Family doesn't steal from family, Marcus. Family doesn't destroy each other for profit. The security escort to my office was humiliating but necessary for what came next. As I packed my personal items under watchful supervision, I discreetly activated several protocols I had prepared for this scenario. The first was a data purge sequence that would remotely wipe certain critical files from VoltaCore's servers within 24 hours. Not company data, I wasn't a saboteur, but my personal research notes and preliminary designs for the advanced technology they knew nothing about. The second was a series of encrypted messages to key employees, revealing what had really happened and offering them positions at a new company I was about to launch. The third was the activation of my insurance policy, the hidden design flaws I had built into VoltaCore's current battery systems. Without regular application of a stabilization compound I had been secretly adding during maintenance cycles, the batteries would begin degrading rapidly within 3 months. As I carried my box of personal belongings past the conference room where my former board was undoubtedly celebrating their victory, I smiled for the first time that evening. They thought they had won. They had no idea the war was just beginning. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove to a 24-hour cafe near MIT and began making phone calls. The first was to Amanda Chen, my attorney. It's Hannah Reynolds. They just executed the coup we discussed. I need you to file the patent infringement suits tomorrow morning. All of them? Amanda asked. Every single one. Hit them with everything: trademark violations, trade secret theft, breach of fiduciary duty, corporate espionage. I want them buried in legal challenges while we execute the next phase. My second call was to Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a former MIT professor who specialized in venture capital and startup launches. I had been quietly working with her for weeks to establish the infrastructure for what would become Phoenix Energy. Jennifer, it's time. How quickly can we move? I've been waiting for your call, she replied. Phoenix Energy is already incorporated. The initial funding is in place. We can be operational by Monday. And the patents? All filed under your name, as we discussed. The core technology belongs to you personally, not to Volta Core. The beauty of my situation was that the most advanced battery technology, the real breakthrough innovations, had never been shared with Volta Core. They existed only in patents I had filed independently and in prototypes secured in a private lab I had maintained throughout the company's growth. Volta Core thought they were stealing a revolutionary technology. In reality, they had taken the equivalent of a beta test version while the actual breakthrough remained entirely under my control. My third call was to Dr. Sarah Kim, the battery engineer who had expressed concerns about the company's direction. Sarah, it's Hannah. They voted me out tonight. I heard rumors something was happening, she replied. I'm so sorry. This is insane. Don't be sorry. Be ready. I'm launching a new company, and I want you as my CTO. The technology we'll be working with makes Volta Core's current systems look like toys from the 1990s. There was silence on the line as she processed the implications. How is that possible? She finally asked. Because I never gave them the real breakthrough, Sarah. What they stole was deliberately incomplete. The actual revolution in energy storage is about to begin, and I'm offering you the chance to be part of it from day one. By sunrise, I had secured commitments from 8 of Volta Core's most talented employees, including our head of manufacturing, lead software engineer, and top sales manager. They weren't just jumping ship, they were joining a mission to complete the clean energy revolution with technology that would make our previous work seem primitive. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. While Volta Core's board celebrated their coup and began making grand announcements about experienced leadership and strategic refocusing, I was quietly assembling the team and resources that would destroy them. Phoenix Energy launched with $25 million in initial funding, secured through Jennifer's connections and my own reputation in the clean tech community. Our first demonstration of the true breakthrough battery technology sent shockwaves through the industry. The new batteries didn't just store 500% more energy than traditional systems, they stored 2,000% more. They didn't just charge 10 times faster, they charged 50 times faster. Most importantly, they incorporated self-healing nanotechnology that actually improved performance over time rather than degrading. This isn't an incremental improvement, wrote TechCrunch in their coverage of Phoenix Energy's launch. This is a fundamental breakthrough that renders existing battery technology obsolete overnight. The response from potential customers was immediate and overwhelming. The same California utility that had celebrated their contract with Volta Core called within days, asking if Phoenix Energy could provide equivalent storage capacity at half the cost. We appreciate our relationship with Volta Core, their procurement director explained, but if Phoenix Energy can deliver what you're demonstrating, we'd be irresponsible not to consider switching. Similar calls came from Tesla, Google, and a dozen other major clients. Within a month, Phoenix Energy had secured $100 million in pre-orders for technology that made Volta Core's systems seem hopelessly outdated. Meanwhile, Volta Core was discovering the true cost of their betrayal. Without my stabilization compounds, their existing battery installations began experiencing the degradation I had built into the system. Performance dropped by 20%, then 30%, then 50%. Frantic calls from clients demanded explanations for the sudden failures. The engineering team, led by people who didn't understand the fundamental principles behind the technology, couldn't provide answers or solutions. Marcus called me repeatedly, his messages growing increasingly desperate. Hannah, we need to talk. There are some technical issues we need your help resolving. Hannah, please call me back. I know you're angry, but we can work this out. The company needs your expertise. Hannah, whatever you think we did wrong, we can fix it. Come back and help us solve these problems. I saved every message but didn't respond. Amanda Chen advised patients let them struggle publicly before revealing the full scope of their legal troubles. 3 months after the coup, the reckoning began. Amanda filed a comprehensive lawsuit revealing the extent of Voltacor's corporate malfeasance. The evidence was overwhelming: recorded conversations of board members discussing how to marginalize me, email trails showing coordination with competitors to steal trade secrets, financial documents proving they had been planning the coup for over a year. Most damaging was evidence that Marcus had been selling information about our technology to traditional energy companies, receiving payments that he hid from other shareholders and the board. The man I had trusted as a father had been betraying me for money long before the formal coup attempt. The lawsuit made national news, particularly when journalists learned about my background, the orphaned prodigy who had revolutionized clean energy, only to be betrayed by the man who raised her. "The Hannah Reynolds case represents everything wrong with corporate America," wrote the Wall Street Journal. "A young innovator creates breakthrough technology, shares equity with trusted mentors, and gets stabbed in the back by the very people who should have been protecting her interests." The public response was overwhelmingly supportive. Clean energy advocates, women in tech organizations, and young entrepreneurs rallied around the story of a brilliant inventor fighting corporate theft. More importantly for business purposes, the lawsuit revealed that Voltacor's technology was fundamentally flawed without my continued involvement. The battery failures weren't accidental, they were evidence that the company had stolen incomplete intellectual property. Investors began demanding answers. Stock analysts downgraded Voltacor's valuation. The California utility contract was suspended pending investigation into whether the company could actually deliver functional technology. Within 6 months of their coup, Voltacor's valuation had dropped from $12 million to less than $3 million. 3 board members resigned to avoid personal liability for the legal challenges. The company that had been positioned for explosive growth was instead facing bankruptcy. Phoenix Energy, meanwhile, was experiencing the explosive success Voltacor should have had. Our revolutionary battery technology was being implemented in renewable energy projects across North America and Europe. Major automotive companies were licensing our systems for next-generation electric vehicles. By the end of our first year, Phoenix Energy was valued at $45 million, nearly 4 times Voltacor's peak valuation. We employed over 100 people, operated facilities in 3 countries, and held patents on technology that was fundamentally changing how the world stored and used energy. The personal confrontation I had been avoiding finally came when Marcus showed up at my office unannounced. Security called to ask if I wanted him removed from the building. Let him come up, I decided. It's time we finished this conversation. He entered my office looking older and more defeated than I had ever seen him. The confident, paternalistic scientist who had dismissed me as too young and emotional was gone. In his place was a man facing personal and professional ruin. "Hannah," he began, his voice cracking. "I need you to know that everything I did was to protect you." I gestured for him to sit, but remained standing behind my desk. "Protect me from what, Marcus? Success? Recognition? Control of my own innovations? From making mistakes that would have destroyed everything you worked for? You were so young, so inexperienced in business. I was trying to guide you until you were ready for real leadership. By stealing my company and selling my technology to competitors." His face flushed. "Those were business arrangements designed to secure our market position. You wouldn't understand the complexity of—" "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You saw a brilliant young woman who trusted you completely, and you decided to exploit that trust for your own benefit. The truth hung between us like a physical barrier. He had raised me, yes. But he had also groomed me to be dependent on his guidance, to doubt my own judgment, to accept his control as necessary protection. You were like a daughter to me," he said quietly. "A father doesn't steal from his daughter, Marcus. A father doesn't undermine her confidence or dismiss her achievements. A father doesn't sell her innovations to her competitors." He was crying now, the tears of a man who had destroyed everything he claimed to value. "I lost everything," he whispered. "The lawsuit, the investigations, the criminal charges for corporate espionage. My reputation is destroyed. I'll never work in science again." "You made those choices," I replied without sympathy. "Every betrayal, every lie, every theft, those were your decisions. "Can you forgive me?" he asked. "Can we find some way to repair this?" I looked at the man who had shaped my life from age 14 to 28. He had given me knowledge, opportunities, and support during my most vulnerable years. He had also exploited that vulnerability to control and ultimately betray me. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, Marcus. I can forgive you for my own peace of mind, but I'll never trust you again. And I'll never forget what you chose when it mattered most. He left my office that day a broken man. 3 months later, he was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison for corporate espionage and breach of fiduciary duty. The brilliant scientist who had once been my hero became a cautionary tale about how brilliance without integrity leads to inevitable destruction. 5 years after the betrayal, Phoenix Energy went public with an initial stock offering that valued the company at $200 million. Our technology was powering clean energy transitions in 23 countries. Electric vehicles using Phoenix Energy batteries could travel 1,000 miles on a single charge. Grid-scale storage systems were making renewable energy the cheapest power source in most markets. The clean energy revolution I had dreamed of as a young scientist was finally becoming reality, not despite the betrayal I had suffered, but because of how I had responded to it. More personally, I had learned to build new relationships based on mutual respect rather than dependency. The team at Phoenix Energy wasn't just a group of employees, they were partners in a mission we all believed in. When we succeeded, everyone shared in that success. When we faced challenges, we solved them together. I also found love in an unexpected place. Dr. David Chen, a climate scientist studying the impact of clean energy adoption on atmospheric carbon levels, joined Phoenix Energy as our Director of Environmental Impact. Our relationship developed slowly, built on shared values and intellectual partnership rather than need or control. "What I love about working with you," he told me after we had been dating for several months, "is that you never try to diminish my expertise or question my judgment. We're equals in this relationship and in our work." The contrast with Marcus's paternalistic control couldn't have been more stark. David celebrated my achievements rather than taking credit for them. He supported my ambitions rather than trying to limit them. Most importantly, he loved me for who I was, not for what I could provide him. When we married in a ceremony powered entirely by Phoenix Energy solar batteries, the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. The orphaned prodigy who had been betrayed by her father figure had built not just a revolutionary technology company, but a life filled with genuine partnership and mutual support. The question I'm asked most frequently in interviews is whether I regret trusting Marcus or giving him equity in VoltaCore. The answer is complex but ultimately hopeful. I regret the pain of betrayal and the months of legal warfare that followed. I regret that someone I loved could choose greed over family loyalty. But I don't regret the journey that betrayal set in motion. Being forced out of VoltaCore freed me to build something better. Phoenix Energy isn't just more successful than VoltaCore ever was, it's structured around principles of equity, transparency, and shared ownership that make similar betrayals impossible. Our employees own significant equity stakes in the company. Board decisions require unanimous consent rather than simple majorities. Most importantly, the core technology patents remain in my name, ensuring that no one can steal what we've built together. The betrayal also taught me to recognize the difference between mentorship and manipulation. True mentors want their students to surpass them. They celebrate independent success rather than taking credit for it. They protect and empower rather than control and limit. Marcus thought he was protecting me from my own youth and inexperience. In reality, he was projecting his own fears and insecurities onto someone whose potential threatened his sense of importance. The young entrepreneurs who seek my advice today often ask how to avoid similar betrayals. My answer is both practical and philosophical. Trust people based on their actions over time, not their words in the moment. Build legal protections, but more importantly, build relationships with people whose success is genuinely tied to your own. If you've ever been told you're too young, too inexperienced, or too emotional for the opportunities you've created, remember this: age is not wisdom, and experience is not integrity. The people trying to limit you are often the ones most threatened by what you might accomplish. Today, Phoenix Energy is valued at over $500 million. Our technology has helped accelerate the global transition to clean energy by at least 5 years. The carbon emissions prevented by our innovations are measurable and significant. But the metric I'm most proud of is the people whose lives have been changed by the opportunities we've created. The 300 employees who own equity in a company that's revolutionizing energy storage. The young scientists and engineers who see Phoenix Energy as proof that breakthrough innovations can be built and maintained by their creators rather than stolen by corporate manipulators. Marcus Webb spent 2 years in prison and now works as a part-time consultant for small tech companies. Volta Corp declared bankruptcy 18 months after the coup, its assets sold to pay creditors and legal settlements. The board members who participated in the betrayal faced their own consequences. Dr. Chambers lost her position at the Fortune 500 company when the corporate espionage charges became public, Robert Martinez's venture capital firm dropped him as a partner, and Dr. Morrison was investigated by his university for ethics violations. The greatest irony is that Marcus's attempt to steal my technology actually accelerated the clean energy revolution he claimed to support. By forcing me to launch Phoenix Energy with my true breakthrough innovations, rather than the deliberately limited technology one had given to Volta Corp, he inadvertently ensured that the world gained access to revolutionary battery storage years ahead of schedule. The ripple effects continue to this day. Countries that were struggling to integrate renewable energy due to storage limitations can now build entirely clean power grids. Electric vehicles are becoming affordable and practical for average consumers. Remote communities that never had reliable electricity now have solar-powered systems that can store energy for weeks. Every time I see news of another coal plant being shut down or another country reaching carbon neutrality ahead of schedule, I think about the young woman who trusted too completely and the betrayal that ultimately freed her to change the world. The story doesn't end with corporate triumph or personal revenge. It ends with understanding that our greatest setbacks often become the foundation for our most significant achievements. The people who try to steal our dreams don't determine our future, our response to that theft does. If you're facing your own betrayal, if someone you trusted is trying to diminish your achievements or steal your innovations, remember this: they can take your company, your position, or your current success. But they cannot take your knowledge, your creativity, or your determination to build something even better. The mentor who becomes manipulator, the family that becomes competitor, the trusted advisor who becomes thief, they reveal their true character in moments of crisis. When they do, don't waste time trying to change them or understand their motivations. Use that energy to build something they could never imagine, something that makes their theft seem insignificant by comparison. Today, when young entrepreneurs approach me seeking mentorship, I share Marcus's story as a cautionary tale. Real mentors want their students to surpass them. They celebrate independent success rather than claiming credit for it. They open doors rather than closing them. Most importantly, they understand that their legacy is measured not by what they achieve themselves, but by what they help others accomplish. The Phoenix Energy Foundation now provides grants and mentorship to young innovators working on climate solutions. We've helped launch 47 companies in the past 3 years, with a combined valuation of over $800 million. Each represents a young entrepreneur who refused to let age, inexperience, or skepticism limit their potential to change the world. I established one rule for our foundation's mentorship program: mentors who attempt to control, manipulate, or exploit their mentees are immediately removed from the program. Trust is earned through consistent support, not demanded through emotional manipulation. The clean energy revolution continues to accelerate. Phoenix Energy's latest battery technology can store renewable energy for months rather than weeks, making seasonal storage viable for entire countries. We're working on fusion-powered charging systems that could eliminate energy scarcity entirely within a generation. But perhaps the most satisfying development is watching the young scientists and engineers we've hired surpass even my own innovations. Dr. Sarah Kim, my former Volta Corp colleague who became Phoenix Energy's CTO, recently developed quantum-enhanced storage cells that exceed even my original breakthrough designs. "Hannah," she told me after her latest successful test, "I think your student is about to surpass the teacher." "That's the whole point," I replied, remembering all the times Marcus had tried to keep me dependent on his guidance rather than encouraging my independent growth. As I write this, Phoenix Energy is preparing for our next breakthrough announcement, a partnership with NASA to develop energy storage systems for Mars colonization. The technology that began as my attempt to solve renewable energy storage on Earth may soon power humanity's expansion to other planets. The betrayal that once seemed like the end of my dreams became the beginning of achievements I couldn't have imagined. The man who tried to steal my future inadvertently freed me to build one beyond his limited vision. If you've ever been underestimated because of your age, your background, or your unconventional ideas, know this: the people trying to limit you are usually the ones most threatened by your potential. Their attempts to control you reveal their own insecurities, not your inadequacies. When they try to steal what you've built, build something better. When they question your competence, let your results speak louder than their doubts. When they betray your trust, use that painful clarity to choose better allies for the future. The revolution you're capable of creating is limited only by your willingness to persist despite setbacks, to innovate despite skepticism, and to lead despite those who would rather follow you while claiming to guide you. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did that betrayal change your perspective on success and relationships? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else find the strength to turn their greatest setback into their greatest comeback. And if this story inspired you to keep fighting for your dreams despite the skeptics and manipulators, hit that subscribe button. The future belongs to those bold enough to create it, despite everyone who would rather steal it. Remember, the family we choose through our work and values is often stronger than the one we're born into or the one that claims to be protecting us. True allies celebrate your success rather than claiming credit for it. They want you to surpass them, not remain dependent on them. Thank you for being part of my chosen family. Together, we're building a cleaner, more innovative world, one breakthrough at a time.